Hello and welcome to Leaving Nothing Undared, the podcast from Oblate School of Theology's Department of Continuing Education. I'm your host, Antonio Frietze, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Dr. Tom Langham. He's a scholar whose enduring passion for contemplative living and social spirituality wed beautifully academic insight and practical experience. He'll be leading an upcoming 8-week series on Henri Nouwen entitled Henri Nouwen on Moments of the Spiritual Life, exploring Nouwen's profound work, Reaching Out. I'm excited to speak with Tom today, and let's dive in. Tom, hello. Thank you for joining us today.
Good to see you, Antonio.
Absolutely, and thank you again for taking the time. We're very excited about your upcoming offering on Henri Nouwen, but we try to do these promotional interviews to give our audience an opportunity to get to know the speaker that they might be spending some time with. So in that spirit, we'd really love for you to share a bit about who you are, your background, and then particularly what attracted you to Henri Nouwen and motivated you to want to develop a program around him.
Well, background, let me speak to that first. And I was raised as a Christian, first with my parents as a Nazarene, and they became Presbyterians. And then, interestingly, I left the church from when I was about 18 until I was 50. And even at that point of 18, I knew that if I returned to the Christian faith, it would be as a Catholic. And that indeed is what I did. My wife, on the first Sunday of the year 2000, said, "We need to go to church." I said, "Where?" She said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "Well, let's go to the local Catholic church because I think that will work best for both of us." And we did. And that was, I guess, almost 26 years ago now. And so we're deeply involved with our church here in Taos, where we live, New Mexico, San Francisco Diocese. And we both serve as mayordomos, which is a southwestern kind of post. It fills in somewhat of the role of the deacon. And so we serve as Eucharistic ministers, ministers of hospitality. We and the other 20 mayordomos that we take turns cleaning the church every week, and a whole sundry of other things that we do. So that is kind of that angle. And then another angle on me, how I have supported my faith, is during that period when I was not involved with the church, my interest in life and its meaning and what it was all about became a big issue for me. And in my graduate school, I studied social thought in part, which for me meant that it covered the West period from about 1100 to the present of Western social thought, but it was from a secular interpretation. It wasn't from a theological interpretation. And of course, we know with the Enlightenment that the secular interpretation of how life occurs became very important. But anyhow, that led to me taking a course from Oblate School of Theology in 2017. I received a postcard. Apparently nobody else received it but me. Anyhow, I got this postcard, I guess kind of a message from God that invited me to this course called Bridges to Contemplative Living with Thomas Merton. So I attended that. It was a course that went on for 4 years. And then I began to teach that course at Oblate School of Theology. But the story is much longer and more complex than that. But that kind of gives you the general outlines of how I got to here and why I'm interested in teaching this course that I'm presently doing in regards to Henri Nouwen's book, Reaching Out, the Three Movements of the Spiritual Life.
Thank you. I mean, that's a very rich story, and there are some points that I definitely want to highlight and make sure that aren't lost in that narrative, because that experience of exploring the world through a secular lens, having this tug to reintegrate or re-understand the divine and its role in our narrative, our life, and that hook of Oblate School of Theology and creating spaces where folks can kind of integrate those two wings of our human experience, the secular and the divine, the kind of out of church and in church, and coming to an understanding of a holistic, whole person kind of spirituality. That's something that I see that's very present in your own story, and that I'm confident is going to be present in this kind of journey with Henri Nouwen. So for folks who haven't heard about Henri Nouwen or perhaps hearing about him for the first time, how would you describe his spiritual approach or spirituality and why it might be something we seek to encounter?
Well, Henri Nouwen is an interesting character, and he was always kind of an outsider from his childhood. He was cross-eyed apparently when he was young, and that was what probably made him such an interesting priest in the Catholic Church, as well as an interesting writer, is these early experiences. Well, anyhow, he went on to become an academic. He was born in 1932, and through the 1950s up through the early 1980s, he spent much of his time as an academic, as a professor, and doing some writing really in the mid 1970s. And so the book that we're going to look at is called Reaching Out, The Three Movements of the Spiritual Life. And it was written in 1975, which is kind of early for Nouwen writings. But when I was looking at his writings, that one jumped out at me because I think it's extraordinarily relevant. These three movements of the spiritual life that he speaks about, one is a transition from loneliness to solitude. The second one is from hostility to hospitality. And the third one is from illusion, which is individual direction that we might take, to prayer, which is looking to God for guidance. And I think this is really important, especially for the demographic of this class. It's anything like the ones I've taught in the past. A lot of us tend to be retired, or we're people, religious people that make our living doing that, either priests or sisters and so on and so forth. But it seems to me these are all important issues, and loneliness is such a large issue in our times. And in fact, in preparing for this course, one of my friends who's 81 now, I call her every week in Louisiana, and she's been having a lot of problems with loneliness, and she's a very devout Catholic. I said, well, what we've got to do, it was sounding very wise at that point, but I was piggybacking on Nouwen. I said, we've got to convert this loneliness to solitude. And so we talked about how Nouwen suggested that might be done. And it really has helped her. So I think that's very, very important. And what I'm really interested in doing this class, as I have been and what I've done in the past for Oblate, as well as what I hope to do in the future, is provide something for the people that are taking this class that will improve their lives, but not only their lives, the people around them, because we want to be good people in the lives of others. So anyhow, Nouwen takes up this issue, these three moments of the spiritual life that he sees in considerable detail. And I think that this really helps us to link these three things together, which is loneliness and hostility and personal illusion, and turn them into solitude, hospitality, and prayer. It's really kind of a neat ideas. And of course, we'll want to expand beyond that with our own contributions, because that's a big part of this class. It's not only what we might get from Nouwen and what I might have to say, but in a very important way, it's all those who participate that bring this class to life. And so that's kind of the take on Nouwen.
Absolutely. And, one of those three movements, right? To solitude and hospitality and prayer, they're they resonate with me in part because I'm 30 years old now, and one of the things that I love about working with the facilitators in this program is that it provides a lot of opportunity for intergenerational conversation, right? Something that I think increasingly we're seeing retreat into the margins of our lives, right? We're more and more around our same age groups and demographics. And I would note that as much as you point to the value of those movements for folks who are farther along their spiritual journeys and their life journeys, I think there's just as much a need among young people to find those movements, however incipient they may be in their lives, towards those things, because we're witnessing this kind of atomization, loneliness, primary interaction through screens. And one of the powerful things about this program is that it's taking that arena in which we're often made to feel lonely, right? Our interaction with technology, and instead converting it toward an avenue for spiritual connection with other people, right? Because this is going to be an 8-week online course. You're going to be interacting with folks through Zoom as we're interacting now. And I'm hoping you can give us even more of an idea of what registrants can expect in terms of the class pacing and what they can expect to be doing together, essentially, during these periods.
Sure, I'd be glad to do that. The format of this class involves what I call contemplative, meditative, or contemplative, pardon me, say it again, it's 4 words: contemplative, reflective, meditative prayer. That's a key part of it. And so we'll begin with a time of reflection where we can engage in this. And for me, what this means is that there'll be some time for meditation. I want to separate this out where you can just listen in silence and let God seep into you. And you can see what your issues are in this silence. And then you can take these issues to your prayer. So that's the reason it's reflective, and that is done during the period of meditation. And then that moves to the next stage, which is prayer. And it's similar to what Thomas Keating and others talk about when they talk about centering prayer. I think it's a little bit different because I see that period of reflection is really important because, at least as I see it and from what I've read, I find God in the silence. I find God in solitude. And so if you don't have peace in that, those are issues that you need to bring to God. And you can bring to God anything that is an issue for you that's distracting you from silence, because that is the presence of the universe. If we turn everything off, it is silence, and that is God speaking to us. So I think that's really important understanding that part of the class. And then also there's a second part, and there's transitions with more prayer and meditation. And the meditation might run anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how I'm feeling and how the class is feeling. And the other is a contemplative conversation. And this is where we take from what came from our reflective, meditative prayer and share it with the group. Now, it doesn't have to be strictly that. It can be from the readings too. So whatever you get out of the readings can be brought up in this collective conversation, as well as what's happening in your daily week and so on and so forth. So we air all these things out. And then at the end of this, borrowing from a sociological term, which was for my final training, is we develop a kind of collective conscience that emerged from this group in regards to what it has been discussed in the collective conversation. So there is a format to this that I like to follow. And again, in an important way, Nouwen, with his 3 movements of the spiritual life, is going to guide this. But just as important is what you bring from your daily life and how we merge and meld these things together. And then we'll close with more reflection and prayer. And I always like to try to do a reading from the Psalms and also from the Gospel. So we'll probably begin with the Psalm and then with the Gospel. And so we're going to do this for 8 weeks. And I find it very useful, and I get as much out of it, and maybe even more, than I think you will, because it's just such a growth process for me, and I hope it would be for you.
Absolutely. And it sounds like this is something that folks can enter into without necessarily having had to have had a lot of experience with now and in particular, or contemplative prayer generally. Is that accurate?
I think that's exactly correct. I mean, I think it requires no experience. I think you can. Right now in the church here at San Francisco de Asís, we have a new priest, and we are so on the same page about silence and solitude. And he's introducing this to the congregation. I'm really excited about it. We began with silence, and he has interludes of that. So anyhow, I think that anybody, no matter where you are in your spiritual path, can benefit from this. And I don't be intimidated by it. It's not that at all. I mean, because we're going to have people that come from all, places where they are. We have to take all of us from where we are. And I should also say this. Another thing about this is that unlike the academic world, which is largely critical, we criticize things constantly. In this course, it's a building process. We listen to others and we build upon those ideas. So it's a very different kind of strategy. And I think I came upon this idea a long time ago when I was meeting people that had less than a high school education that I thought were absolutely brilliant. And at the same time, I had many friends with PhDs that I wasn't so sure about exactly how smart they were. So anyhow, we love you from where you are, and we want to take you from where you are, and you will make friends in this course. I believe that will at least you'll remember them if you don't stay in contact with them far beyond this course.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. And it again highlights that element of human connection so present in how you've designed this program and in Henri Nouwen's spirituality. I think I want to end with pushing that point a little further by asking you um, what why is Henri Nouwen so needed and his spirituality so relevant to our lives today?
Well, that's a very good question. And, other people that I've read a great deal of Thomas Merton. This issue of alienation and separation from neighbors, community, even our church is really critically important. And I'm hoping that this course will begin to give people a path to bridge that. I mean, minimally, what you're going to get out of this is a plan to embrace not loneliness, but solitude. And plus, we have the other movements that Nouwen introduced us to, from hostility to hospitality and from illusion to prayer. So I think it's going to leave you in a better place. And uh, Nouwen, I think, does a nice job of this. And as a secular academic, I tend to want to criticize things, but I think if I ever taught again at a secular university, I might well adapt this approach of being more positive and listening to others and what they bring to the table than I have in the past. So I just think all these things are going to gel together in a way that will leave you in a better place. That's the intention in regards to your faith and your life and your family, friends, neighborhood, and larger entities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean that I think it's self-evident how needed that is, right? I think, if we stopped and really listened to one another, we could save the world, it's a wonderful opportunity for our audience, and I thank you for being willing to work with us again and for bringing that to our community. So thank you very much for that, Tom.
Thank you, Antonio. Appreciate it.
For our listeners, I invite you to join us for this very special series, Henri Nouwen on Moments of the Spiritual Life, presented by Dr. Tom Langham. Now, this 8-week journey will take place Tuesday mornings from September 23rd all the way until November 18th. Please note, however, that there will be no session on October 21st. Each session will take place from 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Central Time, and for just $80, you can secure your spot for all 8 sessions. Space is limited to keep the group small and interactive, so I encourage you to register as soon as you can at ost.edu. Thank you again for listening to Leaving Nothing Undared. We'll see you next time, and in the meantime, continue leaving nothing undared for the gospel. God bless you.